Democrats can flip the Senate in 2026, but they're going to need to pick up some seats in some unlikely states. Now, one of those states is Arkansas, where Tom Cotton is up for re-election. And I just had a chance to talk with his opponent, Hallie Shoffner, and it was an amazing interview. When I got done with it, I was excited to see where her campaign goes, and I think you will too. So check it
All
out.
right. Hallie, thanks so much for joining us today, taking a little time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing
Awesome.
great.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for joining us. Why don't we start? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Well, I'm a farmer from Arkansas, six generations, and I grew up in the northeast part of the state, middle of the Arkansas Mississippi Delta region. I grew up farming with my parents. I think I spent nearly every day of every summer working on the farm with them, and I was a very typical farm kid. I rode rodeo. I had a herd of pet goats. I was involved in 4-H. And 9 years ago, I came back to the farm to run about 2,000 acres of soybeans, corn, rice, and wheat. And I did that up until this year. So this year, we joined hundreds of other farmers in Arkansas, thousands across the country, forced to close down because it really didn't matter what we did or what crops we grew. Financially, it wasn't enough. And that is a crisis that continues to deepen to this day, not just in Arkansas, but in parts of the Midwest as well. And, it for me, having to close down a sixth generation operation, you don't have to be a farmer in Arkansas to know what that feels like. You know what it means to work hard and do things right and still fall behind. And it's not because that we've failed, it's because the system is rigged against us. And it's politicians like Tom Cotton who are doing the rigging. The first time I told the story about the farm closing, I went to a town hall in Little Rock, our capital. And 2 days before we'd auctioned off all our equipment, which is what a farm does when they go under, they liquidate all their equipment in an auction. And so as I stood on the stage, they were hauling away the last pieces of our operation, a 150-year-old operation. And instead of coming to that town hall as they were invited, our elected officials were at a fundraiser a few miles away for Tom Cotton's reelection at $7,000 a plate. And in that moment, I decided, you know what, if I can't farm, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for farmers. I'm going to fight for families and workers in the state of Arkansas because we cannot continue to deal with these issues in which we're the most food insecure state in the country. Most people can't afford their health care. Families are not able to get by. These are basic issues that we need to be talking about in the state of Arkansas. And politicians like Tom Cotton have just gone to DC and dug themselves in behind their corporate PAC money and their lobbyists and pulled the ladder up behind them.
Yeah, so you mentioned farming in Arkansas. Of course, nationwide, Arkansas has almost become the epicenter of the farming crisis. We all
Yeah.
saw recently the video of the town hall where farmers were crying, they were praying for any sort of help. Right now, if you fast forward and you find yourself in the Senate, what are some things that you would propose to help farmers right now?
And our senator, our other senator, John Bozeman, is, actively working on a package that would provide what we call a bridge payment for farmers, which is essentially making up for the lack of a farm bill. We have not had a farm bill since 2018. The farm bill is what supports farmers when times get tough. And Tom Cotton's actually voted against the last two farm bills. And our other senator is head of the Ag Committee. So they're talking about a bridge payment. I would absolutely advocate for that in order to keep farms afloat. The problem is that most of the product that we sell, which is soybeans, is purchased by China, and China is no longer buying our product. It's not enough for our leaders to just throw money at this problem. We have to have a farm bill that's updated to allow farmers to grow other things. What if farmers in Arkansas were able to build a sustainable food system? We grow things that put money in our pocket, but we're also providing fresh, healthy food to the families of Arkansas and putting it on the trays of kids in public school cafeterias. And that's really what that is a lack of vision by our DC delegation and by Tom Cotton is, just thinking that, we'll just go on as we always have without looking to the future and not just seeing an opportunity, but creating that opportunity.
You mentioned China, and right now they have not purchased a single soybean from the
Right. They
United
have
States. They're,
not.
they're going to Brazil right now. That's South America. That's where they're headed. But we had this same problem in 2019, where
Yeah.
China was slowing its purchase. It was moving purchases of soybeans to Brazil. And here we are back with the same exact people that brought us that problem in 2019. They're bringing it to us now in 2025. So I guess the question is, how do we bridge the gap? Like, how is it that Arkansas went Tom Cotton and Donald Trump, both times, and yet this is we're seeing it again. So how do you get to people to say, hey, look it, this is a new way forward. This is a different path. Here is exactly what's happened both times with cotton.
And I think that farmers are frustrated because I mean what happened in 2018 and 19, we did lose market share with China. And what frustrates me is that Tom Cotton, I mean, he's hawking a book that he wrote about how China is terrible when he's not talking about the fact that China, through their Belt and Road Initiative, went to Brazil and built their own soybean infrastructure. They basically said, we don't need y'all anymore. We're going to go build our own infrastructure, put in rail systems, all the infrastructure we need so that the United States is no longer our primary market. Now we're a tertiary market at best for soybeans. And I think a lot of us think that, well, that should have been dealt with in the last 6 years. So we put that blame on both administrations for being unable to look to the future, again, lacking that vision, being unable to pass a farm bill, again, lacking that vision. And I think for most Arkansans, and this isn't just farmers, we're waking up in the morning and we're worried about, for small businesses, how are we going to make payroll? We're worried about how the tariffs are going to affect us, 6, 12 months down the road. We're worried about, waking up in the morning and thinking, am I going to be able to afford my groceries or pay for my gas? Is my job going to be there? In rural places in Arkansas, if jobs go away, we're talking about having to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to a new job. And, am I going to have a car that drives that far? Can I afford the gas to do that? These are the issues that matter to Arkansans. And we very much feel like politics today has just become a performance. Tom Cotton gets on social media and he whines about anything other than the economy. And in a state that is poor and hungry and unhealthy, that is unacceptable. And people are seeing that. And it helps for me as a farmer, as someone who can go into spaces all over the state and listen and talk and say, look, I'm here. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the value that everyone deserves a fair shot. But I'm not here to pass a partisan purity test by Republicans or Democrats. I'm here to talk about the issues that hit home for you. And that's what's important, and that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, you mentioned food insecurity, and you're the most food insecure state. And I don't know if I have the number right, but it's 1 in 6 kids are
Hmm. That's
food
right.
insecure.
One in 6 kids will go to bed hungry in the state of Arkansas this year.
That is absolutely wild in a state that has the farming infrastructure that you do.
Right.
And I appreciate your plan to use that to feed kids. But right now, it seems like it may be a growing problem as prices at the grocery store are through the roof. We saw the last inflation report month over month. Fruits and vegetables went up 1.5% in a month. We see record high prices in beef, coffee. Just overall, the grocery bill is getting higher. What do you think we can do at the federal level to help stabilize and potentially bring some of those costs down?
I mean, I truly believe that the Arkansas Delta region and other places in Arkansas too, we live in a place with a relatively stable climate, fertile soil, and water. We can produce our own food. That is perfectly, that is within the realm of possibilities. We talk about bringing manufacturing back to the United States, which would be great, but that takes a long time. What you can do pretty immediately is buy a new piece of equipment and then go to a piece of land and grow something else. That's not, again, outside the realm of possibility, provided that we have policymakers who are willing to put money behind the infrastructure. We need to move away from exclusively dried soybeans, corn, and rice and move into fresh produce. But to do that, we got to have storage for cold storage, and we have to have processing facilities. And those processing facilities and cold storage can be small businesses in these rural communities where farms are. It could provide jobs and tax revenue. It makes a lot of sense for us to be able to produce our own food. Again, it's just about having people in DC who are not only willing to have this vision, but who are also willing to come to the table and restore some balance and collaboration, get us away from the gridlock that is really driving everybody crazy.
Yeah,
I
that,
mean,
oh, no, I'm sorry.
no. I mean, it's like we are all here on the ground, boots on the ground people, real people in the state of Arkansas are concerned about how we're going to get our food, how we're going to be able to afford our food. And all Tom Cotton can do is get on social media and cry about cashless bail in DC.
Yeah, it seems to me that's a great point. Is that we have right now this sect of politicians whose goal is to get on Newsmax, get on Fox, get on MSNBC, CNN, etc., so they can talk about whatever hot button topic that exists. Meanwhile, the average American who doesn't have time in the day to watch these shows are worried about food. And we're kind of jumping ahead, but I am curious because you covered it so much. What is it like in Arkansas? You as an Arkansan, see, I know that.
Yeah,
What
Arkansan.
is it? What is it like as forget that you're running? How often do you see your senator? How often do you see, what you see him on CNN or Fox? Do you ever see him on Channel 6 News at 6 o'clock in the evening?
We do see Senator Bozeman quite a bit, but we do never see Tom Cotton. And it's a running joke in Arkansas that you can't get a meeting with Tom Cotton unless you have a really big check in your hand. I
Yeah,
mean, I know people who, people with the unions, people with advocacy groups that go up to DC and never meet with him, in the last 12 plus years that he's been there. I went to an event in Helena, West Helena, which is one of our Delta regions. And I walked up to a woman, and I shook her hand, and I said, what are you worried about? And she said, well, I'm on Social Security, but I don't make enough money, so I have to clean houses on the side. And she said, I've never actually seen any of our politicians. And I thought, how can you serve the people of Arkansas if you don't know what's happening? And how can you solve the problems if you don't ask the people what the solutions will be? Because who knows better than they do?
yeah, it's a weird dynamic to me, and I hear this complaint. He's very focused on cashless bail in DC. Meanwhile, there's hungry kids in Arkansas, farmers going out of business, and he's not around. Now, one of your plans to help farmers is here's some money, reinvest in yourself, reinvent your farm. Um, but spending money right now, there's not a lot of appetite in DC at this moment, and we're seeing that with the big beautiful bill. A lot of cuts have been made. So transitioning there in the big beautiful bill, there are Medicaid cuts that are going to affect Arkansas tremendously. In fact, you're
Mhm.
probably already seeing it with
We are.
yeah, so talk about that and talk about what it would look like when you're in the Senate to fight this.
Yeah. I'll preface it with saying that the one big beautiful bill, there's so much talk about, running the government like an efficient business, but the one big beautiful bill is just bad business. If you take chunks out of your operating budget, things that you need to function, and then you give tax cuts to the people who don't need it, and then you add trillions of dollars to the federal deficit, that's a recipe for disaster, right? Any small business person will tell you that is a formula that does not work. When we talk about the cuts that they made, and this truly doesn't make any sense from an efficiency standpoint. As a farmer, if I wanted to make a cut, if I wanted to tighten my belt, I would go through my operating budget line item by line item. And I would say, here's where we could tighten the belt and here's where we can't. They cut healthcare that will affect 1 in every 4 Arkansans. 25% of the population in Arkansas depends on Medicaid. They cut massive amounts of SNAP benefits when we are the most food insecure state in the country. 60% of our rural hospitals are now at risk of closing. 11 of them are in imminent danger. I truly do not understand this argument of efficiency. You want to make the government more efficient? Sure, absolutely. But don't cut the things that you need. Don't cut the things that allow your workforce to be the most productive. Is a sicker workforce going to help the economy? No, absolutely not. It truly doesn't make any logical sense.
The as far as the cuts, let's fast forward, you're in the Senate. How do you work with, because ultimately if you win the Senate, the Democrats probably have done pretty well, I would assume, if you take Arkansas. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is still president of the United States. Do you think you can work with Donald Trump to try to get some things passed, like your plan to help farmers, et cetera?
Well, and I talk about this with Senator Bozeman too, because I've met Senator Bozeman several times. I sat on a panel with him 2 years ago where we talked about the Farm Bill, the passage of the Farm Bill, conservation methods within the Farm Bill. I would be more than happy to work with anyone who has the best interest of Arkansans at heart. Anyone who wants to solve our food insecurity crisis, anyone that wants to put people to work in the state of Arkansas, anyone who wants to raise wages and benefits. And and that seems like a no-brainer, right? I mean, surely if you represent the people of Arkansas, if they pay your salary, that's your job. It's your job to care. It's your job to make your state the best you can. And this is a freaking great state. Like I tell people all the time, people look at Arkansas and they write us off. But the last time we had a balanced budget, there was an Arkansan in the White House. We have one of the greatest artists of all time, Johnny Cash. We're the state that sent the first woman to the Senate, the US Senate, ever in 1932. We are the state of Maya Angelou. We're the state of Walmart, which is one of the most powerful companies on this planet, and that company did not succeed in a vacuum. Sam Walton was an Arkansan. Arkansas workers, their grit and their smarts built Walmart. We're a great place. And I tell people, underestimate us at your own peril.
Yeah. It's funny. I shouldn't say this, but when I think of states, I don't think of Arkansas. Arkansas, yeah.
Arkansas.
You see, I
Think
was
of it
so
with a
worried.
W at the end.
Yeah, I was so worried about saying Arkansans that I just said Arkansas. But it is kind of despite all the things you listed, and yeah, we're not that far removed from having a president, an overwhelmingly popular. Whatever you think of him now is fine. But at the time in the 90s, he was overwhelmingly popular, coming out of Arkansas.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I tell people is Arkansans, we are very independent minded people, stubborn, in fact. And I think we've had to be because that's how you survive. If you take the number of registered Republicans and the number of registered Democratic voters and you put them together, they are dwarfed by the number of nonpartisan registered voters in this state. We are independent minded, stubborn people. We vote for the person and not the party.
Yeah, and not to kind of, I don't know, campaign on your behalf or whatever, but I have heard it from you in that it's rare that you've been very hard on Senator Cotton, but almost complimentary about Senator Bozeman. When I asked about like if who's around, you'll say, well, we see Senator Bozeman. I've talked with him, I can work with him. Which usually it's Democrats are just say everything bad about the Republicans. So it's kind of refreshing in that way.
Well, and Senator Crawford as well, he's my representative in Congress. I mean, he and I were in the same parade in Labor Day, and of course we shook hands and spoke, and I said, thank you for working for farmers. We really appreciate it. And again, it's we have to have people in DC who are willing to restore the balance and cooperation that we all desperately need. We can't continue to vote along party lines and not work together because no one wins. No one wins.
Yeah. So right now, the budget bill, we're approaching a government shutdown. Republicans have proposed a bill that got shot down in the Senate. Democrats have responded with a bill that got shot down. So we're kind of at this standstill right now. If you were in the Senate, How would you right now, how do you think you'd approach this? What would be your approach to this situation to make sure the government runs?
I mean, I mean, I think that especially, so if we have a government shutdown, we're talking about trying to get a bridge payment to save the farming industry in the United States. Every delegate from every state in which agriculture is a large industry should be standing on the steps of the Capitol, and they should be very noisy. I'm very noisy. That's one thing about me. I do not mind speaking up when it is needed. We can't continue to do a disservice to the American people. We can't continue to do a disservice to farmers who need this help, but won't get it if the government shuts down. I am absolutely not for the government shutting down because I don't believe that people are going to get the services they need if it happens. And again, this is just this big fight going on in DC at the expense of everybody else. And we're all tired of it. We're all ready for a change. You know, look, come on, let's wipe the slate clean.
Yeah, I think that's what people are yearning for. What you said at the end there. Let's wipe the slate clean. There's a good chunk of the country that wants the next Democratic president to follow suit and say, okay, now it's our turn to get back. But I think the vast majority say no. Someone has to be the adult and say, okay, let's hit the reset button. It's time to be adults again.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with.
Well, and I hope that we have candidates and not just Democrats. I hope we have Republican candidates in all over in the midterms who are willing to stand up and say, um, this isn't about red and it's not about blue. It's about true. What is true about this country? And it's not partisan politics.
Yeah. Now we have another problem though. Right now, Social Security is at risk. It's been talked about for a long time that eventually it's going to come into a financial problem. There have been suggestions of raising the age to
Right.
to try and alleviate that. Is that something you would be for? Do you have a different
No.
an alternative plan?
No, no. So I think this is two things. Number one is this is about efficiency again, spending government money where government money is needed. The reason that Social Security is so important, and it is not just that the people who receive Social Security have earned it. My parents, broke their backs farming, contributing to the economy, paying into the system. They are now both in their 70s. Social Security is a lifeline for them, and they earned it. We have to make sure that we continue to fund Social Security because this is a return on the investment that people have made over their lifetimes. And I am indignant on behalf of my parents because I know how hard they worked. I saw them do it. Number two, so that's key. We have to fund it and we have to find ways to fund it. And again, this one big beautiful bill is not going to help us do that. Not if we're adding trillions in debt, not if we're giving tax breaks to people who don't need it. Number two is that we are missing an opportunity when it comes to seniors. Our senior population is growing. The baby boomers are aging. But do you know what seniors are? They're an economic opportunity. The care economy is an opportunity for small businesses, for people to get jobs, for us to have, outcome-based benefits to cover assisted living. My dad has dementia, and we know that eventually he will need memory care. And the best memory care you can get is in the urban areas, and it costs about $6,000 a month. None of that's covered by Medicare. So my parents are dipping into their Social Security, their retirement plans. They can't go on Medicaid. In order to go on Medicaid for a senior to pay for assisted living, you basically have to divest of any asset that you own. And that robs the next generation of that generational wealth. We're missing an economic opportunity by not focusing more on senior care.
Do would you support any sort of universal health care?
I'm not opposed to the idea. I had a really interesting conversation. I think I have a lot of conversations with farmers, a lot of conversations with people who are, more conservative, a lot of straight ticket Republicans. We all acknowledge that the healthcare system is just broken and that blame can be laid at the feet of both Democrats and Republicans. For this fight over what healthcare should and should not be. And we've gotten ourselves into a situation where we know we have to have radical change. Something big has to change. And we can all agree on that. I don't know if that is the answer. I did have a guy the other day I was talking to who's like, God, maybe we should just be Canada. And he said that not because I necessarily think he believed it, but out of desperation, right? It's this people are desperate. I mean, my health care to cover myself and my husband and our 7-year-old is more than our mortgage. And people are like, well, we can't even afford to have health care. Well, I had an appendectomy 2 years ago, and the hospital billed my insurance company $40,000, which means that people are one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. And that's unacceptable. Something has to change. People are desperate for it.
Yeah, you mentioned your mortgage there for a second. Housing right now is a huge issue in the United States, affordable housing. And then for the next generation coming up, they just feel like the American dream is just out of reach. You know, housing is not affordable. The median age of a new home buyer is now 38 years old. Um,
Hmm.
what do you think we can do to help the housing crisis, both in the affordable housing realm, but also
Hmm.
help people achieve that dream of owning their own home?
I think a lot of it is just a lack of economic development, especially in these areas that tend to be forgotten. It's all about what do you do to solve any crisis? You build up the basic economic base, which means I'm not talking about trickle down economics. I'm talking about investing the money where real people are, increasing the success of small businesses who can then afford to grow and hire people like my husband. My husband runs a small business in Arkansas, and small businesses right now are kind of sitting back on their heels because they don't really know what's going to happen, and so they're not expanding and they're not hiring, and that's going to mean that wages are going to be depressed and people aren't going to be able to afford housing. So that's number one, just build up the basic economy. Number two is we have to deal with the fact that we are trying to move people into these areas, and we're doing that. They're sort of flooding into these urban areas because they can't get jobs outside of these urban areas. And again, that's basic economic development. Like, you want to solve the housing crisis, let's give people good jobs in places where they need good jobs, and we won't have this big flood. The other thing I think we have to address is the fact that we don't have the infrastructure to deal with this increasing population in urban areas. We're putting a lot of stress on these cities trying to build up water and utilities. We also have an issue of, you've got these, I would say, predatory private equity companies coming in to to purchase up housing, flip it, resell it. I mean, we have to democratize home ownership, and that starts with increasing wages and benefits and keeping people in their communities, the communities that they were born into.
Yeah, do you think there's anything we can do to stop private enterprises from going in and buying up housing and then renting it out at ridiculous rates or reselling it at a higher rate?
I mean, I think we should have the conversation. This is an issue in farming too. So I think I've told this story before, but my cousin and I wanted to buy back some land that was legacy Shoffner land that had been sold off over the generations. And the great thing about farmers, small farmers owning their own land, is that we don't have to rent it from somebody. We can make improvements, increase it as an asset. If there's a bad year that comes in, we can leverage land that we own to kind of get us through the bad year. The more equity you have, the better off you are, right? Well, we were outbid significantly by a high net worth individual who already owned a significant amount of land in Arkansas. And we do have that happening. We have high net worth individuals and corporations coming in and being able to undercut the regular farmers who then can't build equity, who, when we get to a farm crisis like this, are more at risk of going under. We have to have that conversation. It's not good enough for us to just, let it go and not address it as a central problem of why farms are going out of business right now. Again, lack of vision, gridlock happening in DC, nobody having the conversations that matter.
Yeah, lack of vision is certainly part of it, but we all know at the end of the day, conversations won't happen so long as money is coming in from another direction. if you get to the Senate or even during your campaign, if somebody came to you with a good chunk of cash and said, "Hey, I'm from this organization. We'd like to talk to you about, our vision, and here's a little money to help your campaign." What are your thoughts there?
Hey, if their vision aligns with mine, that is totally fine. But my vote cannot be bought. If it doesn't help the people of Arkansas, I'm not interested. And if they want their money back, they can have it back.
Okay, plain, simple. Now one thing we didn't talk about is immigration,
Mhm.
which is right now, I think it's one of those issues where there was a good chunk of the country was like, look, we gotta close the border, we've got to remove criminals, right? It was a very simple process, and now they're seeing what's happening, and they're like, well, okay, hold on, this isn't what we signed up for. We've got families being torn apart. We got people going to their immigration court. They're winning their case and then being deported to a country they've never been before. How do we manage to, one, secure the country, remove criminals, keep people safe, but also maintain our humanity and keep people here who just want to be part of the American fabric?
I've told this story a lot. So a good friend of mine is a farmer, and he farms specialty crops, and so he brings in workers through the H-2A visa program. So the H-2A visa program is how farmers get labor. It's the agricultural visa program. It is a legal pathway for workers to come to the United States temporarily. The limit is 10 months, and then they go home. There is an option for them to come back the next year should the employer wish to do that. Um, this farm, which is in the middle of nowhere, not a lot of businesses, has a convenience store next to it. And the convenience store is always asking this farmer, "Hey, when are your guys coming?" Because that's when we make the most money. We have this perception that immigrants are coming to this country and sucking up our resources, when in fact they are significantly contributing to the economy. The H-2A and the H-2B visa programs are similar in this way. What if we were able to have a conversation about immigration where we talked about legal pathways for people to get here and stay temporarily and then go home, stimulate the economy, improve their own well-being, give them opportunities, give small businesses opportunities. We have to be honest about the fact that farmers, other businesses like construction companies, like we've been put into a situation in which we rely on foreign-born labor. And what if we built an immigration system where we actually went to farmers and we went to these employers and asked what they need, as opposed to just blanket policies that make it so that we can't get affordable labor.
Is it an issue right now in Arkansas? Is getting labor on farms? I know there's already a host of problems, but is
Yeah.
labor itself an issue?
Yeah, we've had some instances in which, these H-2A visa workers come in through a petition that farmers make to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Labor. And we have seen several instances in which those petitions have been either ignored or stuck in pending status. We actually I had to help a farmer try to navigate trying to get his petition approved, because if he didn't get his workers, his crop would rot in the field. Millions of dollars worth of crop would have rotted in the field. We have to be able to address these issues so that a farmer is not put in that situation. That's unacceptable, especially since he grew a crop that people actually eat.
Yeah, it's so wild. You're all these issues that farmers are having right now in this moment, especially in Arkansas. There's a ton of issues. You have your finger on the pulse. You have a plan on how to fix it, which is great. But Arkansas lately has become a red state. Tom Cotton won very comfortably last election. It is again, it's safe Republican. So do you see an actual path to victory?
I do, very much so. So Tom Cotton ran unopposed the last time. So it wasn't really much of a fight for him. Uh, they're scared. We have gotten their attention. I mean, we started raising money in July, and we have broken records for a Democrat in Arkansas in over a decade. And the DC establishment and Tom Cotton have started attacking me. And it's because they know. He knew he was going to get a Democratic opponent. He did not bank on a farmer from Newport. And they're very worried because Arkansans are very tired of him. He is polling very low in approval ratings. And People are tired. They want to change. He campaigned on a message of change and then went to DC and dug himself in and pulled the ladder up behind him. And we know that.
Yeah, so you're already being attacked by Republicans, which I guess
Mhm.
is somewhat impressive because I would think if I were in Tom Cotton's shoes, I would expect, okay, Democrats are going to find some establishment person that looks good on camera, can raise money, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. But they're already coming after you. What are some of the
Mhm.
things you're saying?
I mean, they're basically just saying that that we're not a serious campaign, and they're saying it because they know we are. They're basically saying that a Democrat can't win, and they're not going to be serious about this. But the truth is that they know that if there is a candidate out there who's a Democrat who can beat Tom Cotton, it's me. It's the farmer from Northeast Arkansas.
Yeah, do you think he's going to debate you?
I would doubt it. I don't know that he would want to draw that comparison. I mean, I'm a real normal person. I don't think he wants to draw that comparison.
Yeah, that's
He's
too
not.
bad.
He's not a real normal person.
Yeah, no, it's too bad. It's too bad. I hear that a lot. That with these a lot of Republicans aren't, and it's probably the same for some Democrats out there that aren't willing to
Yeah,
debate. When
yeah,
they don't consider you serious, well, then it
yeah.
should be easy, right?
Hey, I'm a Razorback fan. I'm a sad Razorback fan today, but one of our opinion columnists at our paper, he wrote an article about me, and he said, Shoffner strikes me as someone who will score a touchdown if left undefended. And he's right. If we're not taken seriously, we will absolutely do that. Shoot, if we are taken seriously, that actually makes us even more likely to do that. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and I told people who've asked me about it, I'm on fire. And if they give me oxygen, I'll just get bigger and I'll talk about the things that matter, which is jobs, the economy, healthcare, and education.
yeah. Now, it's great. You've convinced me. I'm ready. I'd vote for you now, but there's a problem. I can't. So if the people that can, how do they get involved?
So they can go to my website, HallieShoffner.com. Right now, we are coming towards the end of the third quarter. Donations are greatly appreciated. Our average dollar donation is $45, and we have thousands of donors, which means that this is going to be a grassroots campaign. So every little bit helps. The other thing is to follow me on all the social channels. I'm Hallie Shoffner on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Blue Sky, and X. Keep pushing the message. We got to get it out there. It's time for change.
All right, I appreciate it,
Yeah.
Hallie. Yeah, I appreciate you taking some time out. We'll make sure all your socials are right below us, all your links,
Awesome.
so people can check that out. And I love when we get into the heart of the campaign season. Love to come back and do it again and take a deeper dive into some of the issues.
That would be amazing. I have been a fan for a long time. And
Oh,
not just because your name is basically mine, Hal and Hallie.
yeah, but yeah, if you ever run for president, let me know. We got a ticket.
Oh, a job I
But,
definitely don't want.
yeah, yeah. But thanks so much again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
So that was Hallie Shoffner. I thought it was a great interview, and I want to give you my thoughts. Now, first, it was so refreshing to hear her talk about some of her Republicans in Arkansas that she's very complimentary of, that she thought were doing a good job and saw that they were people she could work with. She wasn't there for the partisan games. She wants to help the people of Arkansas, and that is her focus. The other thing is, she's very much in touch with these kitchen table topics. Everybody can talk about them, but she's able to really get into how it's affecting people. What it means, what this policy means for the everyday American, for the Arkansan farmer, and that again is refreshing. It's not all sound bites. It's here's the problem, here's the solution for it. Here's what was passed. Here's what it's causing. So all of that was really great. And again, after I got done talking with her, I started looking into her more. I got really excited for her campaign, and I'm interested to see where it goes. If there is somebody that can beat Tom Cotton and flip Arkansas from red to blue, certainly she can do it. And we'll see what happens. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.